Hey everybody. So I took a little sidestep today because there was something that I wanted to redo. I did this in an older video, but I've learned some things since then and I want to add to it and go into more detail. So we are going to do a brush prep, care, rescue, maintenance, all of it. We're just going to go over how to treat your brushes all the ways. I did a thing. This is my Young Nails brush. Before you freak out, I did this on purpose so that I could show these things. And this one I am going to ruin in front of you, but it's the eye gel brush, so it's fine. I hung on to it. I don't know why. So first, let's talk about prep when you get a new brush, okay? You're gonna need alcohol for this, and either a small container or a spray bottle like I have here. There's alcohol in both of these. I don't have a new brush here, so I am going to pretend. Let's see. Give me something. Let's do this one. Yeah, we'll do this one. Okay, so the first thing you're gonna do when you get that new brush is, let's get somewhat closer here to move these things out of the way. So the first thing we are going to do, is crack the starch, and then we are just going to flick it back and forth to get as much of that dried starch out as you can, and just keep flicking it. Sometimes I like to use a little spoolie, like from mascara, to help try to break it up and brush some of that out. The more you get out, the better. And then, now I like to use a spray bottle. You can also just use a little container. The alcohol helps dissolve the starch, and it'll get, when you get the starch wet, it'll get kind of a slimy feel. So you're just gonna spray that with alcohol and just kind of, it still has a little starch in it, and just kind of work that through the bristles. And then you are going to wipe off as much as you can, rinse and repeat, and keep doing this until that slimy kind of slick feel is gone. You'll know what I'm talking about when you feel it. If you don't have a little spray bottle, I like the spray bottle. It seems to dry a little quicker, I don't know. If you don't have a spray bottle, just use a small container. Just kind of move it around, try to knock some of that loose. Same thing, we're just gonna keep wiping it until that feeling is gone. Then once you have all of the starch out, now you can train your brush. I'm gonna show you how to retrain your brush, but to initially train it, after you get all the alcohol out, you are just going to take some cuticle oil. I am using just plain cuticle oil, whatever. And put a drop on the bristles, and you're going to kind of massage that through, and then you're going to shape it with your fingers. Make sure it gets all the way down in there, and then you're going to shape the brush in the shape that you want with your fingers, and you're going to let it dry. Don't go straight to using it. The alcohol will, it just makes a big old mess. So shape it to the shape that you want, and then let it dry. Done, prepped. Okay, what's next? So we've prepped our new brush. Now let's take care of some old ones. Now let's talk about rescuing our brushes, okay? We're gonna go over a couple of things. How to properly get that acrylic out. I did this on purpose to make a point because it's a very expensive brush. And I've done this multiple times. I've actually started this video a few times, so I've trashed this brush repeatedly, and it's pretty trashed. Okay, so if you get the acrylic stuck in your brushes, what I like to do is, I know you're not supposed to soak them in acetone. I know that, but I do it anyway. Acetone is bad for the nylon brushes. Acetone kind of melts nylon. Doesn't so much melt sable, and everything in moderation, right? So what I like to do is I use my little cup thingy to soak them in, which holds the brushes up out of the acetone. So it's a cup like this. It's got little lines at the bottom to kind of scrape it off in, and it holds the brushes so that they're not leaning on the bristles. Because if your brush is wet and you lean it on the bristles for any amount of time, it's going to warp the bristles and they're not going to go back to normal. Not easily anyway. So, but for this, it only takes a few minutes, and it's okay in that case. As long as you don't leave it sit there. So I like to put a little acetone, and then to kind of temper the acetone so it's not as strong and not, you know, so harsh, I like to add a little monomer to it to kind of dilute it and condition the bristles, and it helps. And then we let it soak for about 10 minutes. If you can, move it around. If not, just leave it to soak. If there's not much acrylic in it, you don't need to leave it for that long. Just long enough to loosen and soften the acrylic. You can kind of see it softening up there. So, and then what we are going to do, after we pull it out, we are going to take a wooden cuticle stick and just lightly push that out, or you can even use your nail to just kind of push it. Like, don't peel or pull it. You just want to kind of push it to the end of the bristles. You see it coming out there? And the reason you want to make sure it's wooden is, did any of you guys ever as a kid take scissors and make ribbon? Same principle here. If you use metal to do this and push down on it, and I'm ruining this on purpose to show you what I mean, what this is going to do is make your bristles curl up, and they are never going to go back the same way. Like, it'll look frayed. If it's actual sable, it will be frayed, and you can't get those to go back down. So scraping with metal does that. And you can kind of see where the bristles have already started to turn just from that little bit. I mean, this brush was horrible anyway, but you can see where they're frayed out from that. And that never goes back down. And it will catch on acrylic every time you try to use it. So that is why we use the wood. Let me do a little bit more. There's the rest of that acrylic. And more fraying on the edges. So now let's look at the proper way to do that. Throw that away. We have our wooden cuticle stick or our fingernails. These are God's tools. They gave them to us so that we didn't have to carry around knives. Now we are going to soak this. I'm gonna let this soak for about 10 minutes, and then I will be right back. Okay, now it's been about 10 minutes. We're gonna pull it out. We're gonna get a little bit closer here. Okay, so you can see the acrylic has started to soften. So now you wanna take your cuticle stick or your fingernail and kind of just start to pry it. You don't wanna pull on the hairs though, so if it's not pulling loose, don't try to force it. Just lightly scrape off what will come off, because it will pull the hairs out of your brush. Yeah, look at that. And if it's still, like if it's not all the way off, put it back in for another 10 minutes. If you're concerned about the acetone, rinse it in monomer in between, like I am doing, just to get the acetone that's down in there off, and then put it back in the mixture for another 10 minutes, rinse and repeat. Then we are going to use our wooden cuticle stick or our fingernail to pull that last little bit off, and you can do this as many times as you need to until you get it all off. Aha. Now I have done this repeatedly, multiple times to this brush with no real damage to it. I mean, I've lost a couple hairs here and there, but that's it. So we got the big chunks off. We're gonna give it another dip just to, you know, Make sure we got it all down in there. We're gonna wipe. Now, I like to take my fingernail and just go through and make sure there's none down in the bristles. Just give it a light scrape with your fingernail, and you can see there's still some kind of coming off there. Just a little bit. Just kind of spread those apart. Push. Light pushing. Now, if you think you got it all off, here's a nice little trick that I like to do, and I know it's gonna look bad. Take your fingers and kind of give the bristles a little shimmy, and this will work anything out that you can't see that's in there, and it'll kind of roll to the surface. Just lightly, you don't want to push it too hard and pull your hairs out. And you can see where a little bit more acrylic came out there. See it rolling up on top? So that's acrylic that I missed with the soak and the scrape and all that. So we got that out. Now, our brush is clean, and you can give it a couple more dips and wipes and whatever, right? Okay, so our brush is clean, but now you want to kind of reshape it, right? So first we want to get all that acetone out of there, so we want to dip it in our monomer. It's over here, and rinse it. Just give it a good rinse in the monomer, right? And we are going to do the same thing with the cuticle oil. We're going to douse it really good. And then we are going to massage it all the way through. Make sure we get it all the way down in there. Now you can see, since I used the wooden one, none of my bristles are frayed. They're all still in really good shape. I only lost like one hair. My shape is still pretty much there. Now we've got our cuticle oil all in there, and we are going to shape it, get it back to our nice pointy shape, or however you want it to look. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to let it dry. Now, let's say your brushes are just kind of old, you know, and you want to give them a good reconditioning, you know, a good reshaping and good clean out, right? So let's take this one. All right, because this one's got a weird shape. I don't like it. So what you're gonna need, this is weird, you're gonna need your cuticle oil, and you're gonna need an air dry top coat, not gel top coat, just the, you know, you can get the dollar store stuff. You don't need anything special, just the kind that air dries. This has been in a drawer forever, so. But just the regular old fashioned top coat, okay? We are going to take our brush and get it nice and wet with monomer. Like really get it down in there, right? So make sure our brush is nice and clean. And then we are going to pat it dry as we can get it. Soak all that up. And put just a little cuticle oil on it. And the reason I put cuticle oil on my brushes every single time that I clean them, and this is something that I recently learned because I always have trouble with them just not staying clean, you know, and I hate having to soak them and clean them like every time I use them. And the cuticle oil helps keep the acrylic from sticking like magic. It just makes it so much smoother, and I didn't know that. For all my weird trivia and info, I didn't know that. So just, you know, every time you use your brushes after you clean them, when you're done, put cuticle oil on them, reshape them, let them dry that way. But this time we are doing a reconditioning reshaping. So we got all that cuticle oil in there. Now we are going to take our air dry top coat and knock it over. If you're, you know, if you want to do it exactly like I do, you got to knock it over. We're going to take our brush, just brush a little on each side. Then we're going to do the same thing we did with the cuticle oil, and we're just going to kind of massage that all the way down in there. Same thing, massage it through so you're getting most of the bristles, you know. Just give it a nice good rub down. And then you're going to shape it as it dries. Ooh, see that here? I like that. That one's not going with the rest of them. Okay. So as it starts to stiffen, you can really get a good shape to it, and it will stay. Except for this brush, because it's weird. Now, after you've done that, you want to let that dry overnight. I am not going to do that because I don't want to make you guys wait all night. So once that's dry all the way, because you want to let that monomer and cuticle oil that's in there dry with it, and that it's kind of like sleeping with foam rollers in, like you roll them up when your hair is wet and then it dries into the shape that you want. Same thing. So you want to let this sit overnight and dry. Now, we're going to skip ahead just so I can show you how to get that top coat out. So then, when you're ready to clean that out, when they're all set and done, you're going to take a little bit of acetone and then your monomer. We're not going to mix it this time. We are going to have it separately, and you are going to dip it into the acetone and kind of break that loose, that top coat. We're going to wipe it off. Make sure that the acetone is getting all the way down in there so that we can wipe off all of that top coat. You're going to kind of break it up. Basically, that top coat is just holding it in place while it dries, just like a set of foam rollers. Wow, I only did it for a minute and it did actually help the shape a lot. So we want to make sure all that top coat's out of there, so give it a nice feel. Just kind of wipe it off. And then, just as with the rest of it, we are going to rinse it in monomer. Give it a nice rinse, wipe, and you're ready to go again. I would, at this point, add your cuticle oil again, just because it helps so much keeping them clean. Woo-hoo. So now this one did take on a lot better shape than it had before. It was just a mess, even just with a few minutes in the top coat. So, and there we go. And then let it dry, or you can go ahead right on to use it because you've got everything out of it and all that's on it is cuticle oil. So hopefully I've helped a little bit. That top coat trick, it's kind of hit or miss. If you've frayed and curled your edges on your brushes, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It works great if you've leaned your brush into liquid and it's kind of smushed to the side on you. So, it's helpful. Or if your brush is, if you use it a lot and it starts to get like this, just when it dries, it just kind of bushes up a little bit like that. It works great to kind of get it back to its original shape. So, hopefully, this has been a help. And if you guys have any questions, I know a lot of people say don't use acetone on sable brushes, but honestly, I've never had a problem with it. To be specific, this Pana brush I have had for almost 2 years now. I use it quite a bit. I use it for almost all of my swatches because of its size. That is how I clean it every single time, and so far, it's still going strong. You can see it's got great shape. I love this brush. It's lasted me forever. But yeah, and that's with cleaning it with acetone. If you're careful and do it in moderation, there's no reason that you can't use it to clean, because really it's super effective to get acrylic out. It's only a real danger to nylon brushes. So, yeah, again, I hope this helps. This week we're going to be doing our giveaways. I cannot wait to get started. On Monday, we will be getting started with that, and we will be starting with the Marvel series, and I'm so excited. And as always, thanks for watching.